Welcome to Alabama Justice Lawyering Up. My name is Richard Jaffe, the senior partner in the Birmingham, Alabama law firm of Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight. We are going to explore with you the hottest cases, the most controversial topics of Alabama justice, and we're going to bring to you exciting key players that make our Alabama justice work or not work. We look forward to having you. Welcome to another segment of Alabama Justice. I'm Richard Jaffe here with one of my partners, Mike Hanle, and we have an exciting guest with us today, David Luker, who is the public defender of Jefferson County. We're going to talk to David about his experience and his office. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
We appreciate you being here. Let's start off a little bit about you and your background, which I understand, knowing you as long as I have, started off in the law enforcement arena.
I started off with the Birmingham Police Department in 1970 and was fortunate enough to go to school while I was there and wound up getting a bachelor's and master's degree and then went to law school.
And what kind of cases did you investigate and handle as a Birmingham police officer?
When I started out, I was like everybody else. I was just a beat policeman working night shift. Ultimately, I wound up working the last 9 years of my career there in narcotics investigation.
And how did that affect you as you transitioned into becoming a criminal defense lawyer?
Well, it gave me an insight that a lot of lawyers didn't have because I knew what happened on both sides. And so I won't say I had an advantage, but I certainly had knowledge that was helpful to me in resolving cases for clients.
And you have certainly handled some extraordinarily exciting cases as a criminal defense lawyer. Any ones that particularly stand out right now to you? Because I know there are tons.
Well, the capital murder cases mean a lot to me because I've been very fortunate in handling those. In federal court, probably the one that stands out the most is an internet trafficking case that the first time they ever made cases on Viagra, Propecia, Cialis being sold over the internet, and I represented a person that was charged here was a doctor, and we got him a not guilty in Montgomery.
Not an easy thing to do, considering that in federal court they have about a 98% conviction rate.
That's true. It's an uphill battle sometimes.
Tell us this. Do you have any insight as to why Jefferson County, our county, became one of the last in the country to obtain a public defender system?
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of resistance, and just like as you came up and I came up, the individual lawyers in Jefferson County took appointed cases, and they were able to learn from those cases, and that's an important thing. I mean, I got appointed cases when I first started practicing that allowed me to have an opportunity to learn. And I think the fact that we've changed that in Jefferson County is a problem in some respects. And so because of the financial concerns, it became a reality that we had to live with.
Before getting into the public defender system, what's it like to successfully defend, as you have numerous times, a person who is facing the death penalty?
Well, I mean, I talk to the young lawyers I have in the public defender's office now about that because you've got to have the right mindset to take somebody's life and be responsible for it, because potentially the way you handle the case could make a difference. I've handled 17 capital murder cases to trial, and I've had only one case be convicted of capital murder, and they got life without. So I've never had a death penalty. I've had a bunch of not guilties. It means a lot to you. I mean, that's the pinnacle, in my opinion, of practicing law.
And that's quite a testament and quite a record.
It's not a record, but there's other lawyers that have done better than that. I mean, you just have to take them and work them one at a time.
Well, I appreciate your humility, but that's impressive. But I won't embarrass you. Let's talk for a moment about what is a public defender system and why do we need it?
Well, public defender is a law firm of lawyers that are working to represent indigent people in Jefferson County or in any place that they have the geographic location they're assigned to. But in this case, for Jefferson County, we're Jefferson County. And any person that can't afford to hire a lawyer, the judges make a determination about their financial ability and then appoint the public defender's office to represent them.
Let me follow up on that point for a minute, David. You're the second public defender to work here in Jefferson County, correct?
That is correct.
And the office has been open for maybe 5 years almost?
About 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is your office taking all criminal cases at this point?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, obviously, if there's any case where a person has a co-defendant or there are multiple people charged in the crime, we could only take one. So local lawyers are getting appointed to all the conflicts.
Okay.
We run conflict checks daily on all of our cases. If we have even represented a victim and then comes back, there's another case, we opt out.
Does your office handle all varieties of cases, misdemeanors, felonies, all the way up to capital murder cases?
Anything in Jefferson County.
Have you started taking capital cases?
Oh, absolutely.
In your office?
We've got, I think at last count, I think we have 12 capital murder cases on the board right now.
Jefferson County, being the largest county in the state of Alabama, charges an awful lot of capital cases annually.
They do, but let me just say one thing about that. We have a new district attorney here, Danny Carr.
Who's been on our show.
He's interim, and he's taking a different look at the way we handle capital murder cases and the way we charge capital murder cases, and it's with an eye toward, every case is not a capital case just because it fits the criteria. No. And when I say capital case, I mean death penalty eligible.
Sure. And capital cases are very expensive to litigate, aren't they?
There's no question. That's why, in my opinion, we will be out of the capital murder case business in our lifetime, I think, because of the expense involved. It's an enormous expense to the state of Alabama and to the people.
Having done it from the private bar
Yep.
and accepting those appointments, the defense lawyers also are being paid by the state of Alabama.
Absolutely.
And the defense lawyers hire experts who are being paid by the state of Alabama.
No question.
And that
Many
just
experts.
adds to the overall expense.
It adds a lot. And a lot of times the experts cost more than the lawyers.
That is often true.
Yeah.
Right now, your office is handling all types of cases, and you have older lawyers, more experienced lawyers, younger lawyers. Is there a mix that you're trying to get to?
Well, when I took over, my thought was I would observe the office, and I knew what was going on, and I felt like we needed some more experienced lawyers in there to guide the young ones. The way I learned and the way Richard learned was working with older lawyers. And I'm sure the way you learned.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't happening quite like that where I was now. And so I brought in 8 guys that were all 20 years plus to work as senior attorneys to guide the younger people, try cases with them, and help answer their questions and generally just tutor them.
They're going to be mentors, essentially, to your young lawyers.
Exactly, and it's working very well.
That was going to ask. Have you seen a dynamic shift in the learning process for these young lawyers?
Without question. Okay. Most of the young lawyers are good lawyers. They came from good schools. They want to do a good job. They're dedicated almost to be at poverty level because the pay's terrible. To learn and take care of people that can't take care of themselves. And they're like sponges absorbing stuff every day.
That's great. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'd like to ask you about your thoughts on a statewide public defender system.
You're putting me on the spot.
Thank you. We'll be right back for more with David Luker on Alabama Justice.
I'm Richard Jaffe, senior partner in the law firm of Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight. And with me is Mike Hanle, who has handled many, many, many federal cases, among other cases. Mike, what would you do if you received a call, like you do often, from someone who believes they're a subject or a target of a federal criminal investigation?
Well, the most important thing to do is to immediately reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office to find out who is the principal U.S. Attorney that's handling that case, and you can begin to have a dialogue with that person.
And why is it important to do that?
Well, it allows us to participate in the shaping of the case, how that case will ultimately maybe be charged or not charged at all.
And what are federal sentencing guidelines?
Well, the federal sentencing guidelines are a complex series of calculations that begin with an offense level for each criminal charge, and it includes the calculation of your criminal history, which is your prior criminal conduct.
We at Jaffe, Hanle, Whisonant, and Knight are ready, willing, and able to talk with you or anyone in your family at any time if you find yourself in a position where you need someone experienced in the federal courts.
We are back on Alabama Justice with our very special guest, David Luker. Before we went to commercial, I was getting ready to ask you, how has the composition of your staff changed? How many lawyers do you have in your office right now?
Right now, I think there's 37. I think 38th will start July the 1st. And, it's growing.
Do you have investigators and additional staff?
Have the lawyers, have 4 investigators, have 3 social workers, and we're trying to hire another one. And then the rest of it is we have 4 people doing intake, going to the jail and going to the courthouse. And then the rest of it's secretaries and administrative staff.
Okay, very good.
Let's talk a little bit about what we used to have and no longer have, which is judicial override.
That's, thank goodness.
What are your thoughts about it? And
Well,
what is it?
Judicial override is when a judge has a chance to override what a jury recommends to him on a death penalty case. And oftentimes, I don't know of any case where a judge has had a death penalty that they've overrode and gave life without. So we're talking about a jury hearing the case, hearing all the facts, hearing all the arguments, and saying, we think this case deserves life in the penitentiary as opposed to death. And the judge taking the extraordinary step and saying, nope, I'm going to give the death penalty.
You know, David, it kind of reminds me of our last guest when we were talking about the Speedy Trial Act in federal court, which is supposed to be for the benefit of the defendant, but it really isn't. Person facing death, but it didn't turn out that way.
I don't know of an occasion it ever helped anybody.
Right. We talked a little bit earlier about expense of the death penalty. It's so much more expensive when they go after the death penalty.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, if they go after the death penalty, we're almost bound by law that we've got to pursue mitigation. And once you start hiring mitigation experts to try to mitigate the circumstances and get a jury to convince that death isn't appropriate, you spend a fortune on it. That's one of the things our new DA is doing. He's telling us early on if death is going to be off the table, so we can eliminate that expense and that waste in trying to kill somebody, basically.
Does the death penalty itself, and I'm asking you this both as a former law enforcement person as well as a lawyer in the criminal justice system, does it have any deterrent effect in your opinion?
It has a deterrent effect on one person, and that's all.
And that's it?
That person will never commit another crime after that, but it doesn't change anything. The death penalty means nothing when people are out shooting, killing, and robbing, raping, pillaging the community. It doesn't have any effect on it. Nobody has a chance to think about what they may face in the future. They're thinking about the moment.
And it doesn't really keep the death penalty any safer, although we understand that most Alabamians do believe in the death penalty.
I think that's true. I think most people believe there is an appropriate time for it to be used, but generally speaking, it doesn't make anything better for us or make us any safer.
Let me tell you or talk with you a little bit about what I think is very confusing. Is there a difference between a sentence of life with parole versus life without parole?
Well, I think you just identified the difference. One, you have a potential to get paroled. The other, you have no chance of parole. You're locked up for the rest of your life.
And life without parole really does mean
You never see the light of day again other than when you leave in a box.
Speaking of life and life without parole, you've handled a number of juvenile capital cases, I'm sure.
Yes.
And we've recently had some legislation and some laws that dealt with how we sentence those, Miller hearings. Have you had any experience with the Miller cases?
I think our office has handled 2 Miller cases since I've been there where they've been resentenced.
And these are typically folks who are 15, 16, 17 years old who have been in prison for 25, 30 years.
A lot of them a long time, some of them not as long. I think we have 1 or 2 right now that are 15 years old or 16 years old that are charged with the death penalty.
Okay. Are you having any success with those cases, resentencing?
Well, yes. Most of the time the judges are resentencing without any problem. I mean,
are they being allowed to be released from prison at that point in time? Or still
I don't personally know of a person that's been released from prison as a result of resentencing because of Miller.
Okay.
Don't think that's happened.
and that's because they still have to go through the parole process.
Absolutely.
And the parole process isn't really easy to go through if there's been a death.
Parole process is almost impossible to go through if there's been a death, as you know. I mean, the parole board, we don't have any bright line rules so we can say if you can achieve this level of conduct for 10 years or you can achieve some degree or you can demonstrate to a certain level that you're rehabilitated. We don't have any bright lines. It's just if people show up and they protest, the parole board's, I won't say it's politics, but it's certainly folks are affected by the opinions of the community that protested.
What is your view about whether politics plays a role in the criminal justice system?
There's no question